Don't fight with God. Exodus chapter 17. While traveling in the wilderness, the people of Israel did what God had commanded of them. They followed him. God led the people with a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and he provided for their daily needs. Traveling in stages, God moved the entire congregation from the wilderness of Sin to Rephidim. Yet once all the people settled into the camp, they realized there was no water. This was a real issue. The people got concerned, and their concern grew to fear, and fear grew to grumbling, and grumbling grew to anger, and anger turned to fighting. The people began to fight with Moses. They demanded water from him and accused him of leading them out of Egypt so that he could kill everyone. Moses understood their concerns, but he stayed confident in the Lord's faithfulness to provide water. Moses trusted God's character, and he knew that he had a perfect track record. God would not bring his people all that way just to let them die of thirst. Moses rebuked the people for testing the Lord. As the quarreling among God's people grew, Moses did what any good leader should do. He brought it to the Lord. Moses asked God what to do and noted that the people were ready to kill him if God didn't intervene. God told Moses to take his staff and to lead the elders and the people to the rock of Oreb. God would meet with them at the rock and demonstrate his faithfulness, even while the people fought with Moses and tested the Lord. Yet in another miraculous event, God provided water for his people to drink. Moses was commanded by God to strike the rock, and then water flowed from it, and the people drank. Moses called that place Massah, which means testing, and Meribah, which means quarreling, because the people questioned the Lord's presence and provision. There's another element to this story found in Numbers chapter 20, and it provides us with the reason for why God did not allow Moses to enter the promised land. After being commanded to strike the rock for living water to flow, God said that if people wanted water again, then they just had to speak to the rock. Moses grew frustrated with the people because they continued to rebel, and in anger, he struck the rock a second time. The rock in this story represents Jesus, and Jesus only had to be struck once and for all, and now we simply need to speak to him in order to receive living water. By striking the rock twice, Moses misrepresented God and distorted this gospel picture to the people. Moses was held accountable for not believing and for not upholding God as holy in the eyes of the people. Shortly after this happened, the Amalekites came to fight with Israel at Rephidim. Moses sent Joshua into battle and said that he would stand on top of the hill with the staff in his hand. Joshua obeyed the order, knowing the power of the staff in the hand of Moses. As Joshua went into battle, Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of a hill to overlook the battle. If Moses raised the staff in his hand, Israel prevailed. But if he lowered the staff in his hand, the enemy prevailed. Aaron and Hur supported Moses by helping to lift his hands when they got weary. Together they labored to hold the staff up high, and the Israelites defeated the Amalekites in battle before the sun went down. God made sure that Moses memorialized that day. An altar was built, and they called it "The Lord is my banner," because it was really the Lord who did the fighting, and he gave his people the victory. The Amalekites were remembered for fighting against God and his people, and there was a curse pronounced over them that day. The water of Meribah is a story that reminds the people of God not to fight with God, but even when we do, he proves to be faithful. The mistake of Moses is a reminder to leaders not to fight with God's people, but to show grace and mercy. The battle of the Amalekites is a story that reminds the enemies of God not to fight with God, because when they do, he proves to be victorious. Either way, we should not fight with God. He always prevails.